What is going on, all of you amazing gamers out there in the world? I'm Mega Am, so thank you for checking out this video. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, appreciate you taking the time to be here. And this is something that this will be a bit more informal, hopefully not super long, but just me talking about one aspect of video game consoles specifically that I really do enjoy. It kind of relates to some more recent news we've heard about, and just something that I like. It's not needed, but it's a nice little bonus, and that is backwards compatibility, right? This is the age-old question of, is it really needed? You know, because obviously it adds a lot of additional cost to be able to support that kind of thing, especially if you're trying to do like hardware backwards compatibility, like a lot of the older systems did, right? And nowadays we see more like companies like Xbox in particular. I'm not sure about how Sony does it. I know they have their, PlayStation Essentials and their PlayStation Plus online subscription service now, which that is software emulation, right? And Xbox is doing that. Even if you own old discs, you still like download essentially the game digitally on your Xbox and play it through that software emulation. But this is something I want to talk about because backwards compatibility, I know, has been very contentious. There has been some people who are like, we don't need this. Like, this is just wasted money in terms of adding the capability into their console, which we'll get to in a second. But I definitely appreciate it. As someone who plays a lot of older games as well, I buy older games all the time now. I like to go to retro shops and buy old stuff and play it on the original hardware rather than emulate it if I can, because I don't know, there's something appealing to me about that. I know that's a very personal take. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below, but I appreciate backwards compatibility to be able to play some of these older games maybe on newer hardware. For example, if the older hardware dies out, it's like, oh, you have another option at least to play those. Like, for example, with myself, I'll show some of this off later, but certain original Xbox titles, my original Xbox, my family's died like 4 years ago, maybe it just stopped working. And some of the games are backwards compatible on Xbox 360. Certainly not all of them, though. But before we get into that, I do want to kind of go over some articles here. This is from the Giant Bombs forum. This was from years ago, talking about why it's important. So I think for the most part, we're seeing it now. I think it's honestly pretty important to have backwards compatibility, at least for the immediate previous generation. Now, I know Nintendo did not do that. They completely abandoned that with the Wii U to the Switch, but I feel like that was a special case where it's like the Wii U obviously was not doing so well. The Switch crazily outsold that, and in their case, they just did a lot of ports to resell you games, which is doable, but I'm not a big fan of that approach. It really depends on the circumstances around it. If you can, if the console takes the exact same media, like disc to disc or cartridge to cartridge, for example, then it's like, just do it. I don't know. But obviously that was a very special situation. But here, like, it's important to have, if you're trying to migrate a current user base for your current console to the next generation of consoles, like, to have that gap, especially if you don't have a lot of games at launch, to have that like bridge of like, hey, you can play at least some of your games from your previous generation on the new one and be like, great, this is awesome. So you at least have some games to play at launch, and maybe it's, assuming it's better hardware, maybe those games are, better performing as well on the current, the new generation of consoles, right? When you do that, you kind of, and in a way, obviously it's not anything new, but you kind of mitigate the need for some of those launch games. But it's definitely, it's a nice bonus to have, because then you're more likely to get people on board just in general. That doesn't apply necessarily as much anymore because we're going to the all digital future anyways. And I mean, a lot of people don't play older games. Like, let's be real. Like, those of us who play retro games, we are in the minority of the overall gaming community. Most people who play games play like 5 games, and one of those is Call of Duty, and one of those is like one of the sports games, like Madden or FIFA or any of those. You know what I mean? Like, us retro game collectors and just enjoyers, we're kind of a smaller group. So in that case, they try to justify it, which is fair, but it's one of those things that's like, I mean, it is a vocal minority, and it's like, I don't know, it's just a nice thing to have. It's not a complete deal breaker, but it feels so much better when it's there. And so, yeah, these Giant Bomb forums, I'm just talking about, this is an old one. So this was written during the 360 PS3 generation, I think, after they announced the PS4 and Xbox One. Yeah, those that much money, yeah, that's a big thing too. I didn't even think about that. I've never been in that situation, but like, for example, say, you wanted to, oh, I guess, no, I've been in this example. So I sold my original Wii to, shout out to Brandon. I sold him my Wii because his broke, because I was like, I don't need to worry because the Wii U just plays the Wii games. So I'm like, great, I could just use my Wii U as a Wii and go from there. You know, it's nice to have that option. And in this case, if you don't have enough money to buy the new console, if it's like, oh, plays all your old games, it's like, oh, so I can sell the old console, at least for a little bit. It's not going to be a ton of money, but at least something. And then you can put that towards the new one. There's just a lot of different, drastically increase your library of games, continue digital sales. Really does seem strange in an age. This is interesting to read from. Like, this was like 10 years ago. In an age where everything needs to be cohesive, accessible, and instant. Netflix, Amazon Prime, Spotify. The new console decided to scrap the momentum. Yeah, it's like Sony's ahead of PlayStation now. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see this perspective. Now, regarding Sony, I am mostly Nintendo and Xbox gamer, so I don't have a ton of insight into their perspective. I did dig up this article from Forbes. This was literally written back in 2016. So this is, yeah, this article is more than 8 years old, but I think it's a fun perspective to see. Talking about how the former PlayStation director, Shahid Kamal Ahmad, I'm sorry if I butchered that, talking about how backwards compatibility isn't worth it as it wouldn't be used. And first of all, I mean, that's a complete lie. It's not going to be used by most gamers. I think regardless of what happens, most gamers are not going to use a backwards compatibility, especially when it comes to like physical backwards compatibility. Digital stuff, I mean, that's fine. You offer older games on the digital storefront. Like, some people will still look into those. Not a ton still, but more so than people who are going to have the physical media to play, right? But there will be people. I will be one of those people, I promise you. If you offer it, I will use it. His actual comment is as follows: I've been making games or helping people to make games since 1982. I've seen a lot of things come and go. I'm not a great believer in backwards compatibility. I think that each device should have its own repertoire, its own vibe. If you look at film and music, those are different categories entirely. Obviously, if I paid for a ton of CDs and vinyl, then I don't like to pay again for the digital version. See, this is what I don't get. I don't understand his comment here. Each device should have its own vibe. Like, yes, but having backwards compatibility, I don't think deteriorates the vibe of the... If done right, it won't deteriorate the vibe. For example, the Wii U, at least to me, I don't know about all of you, that just feels like a Wii, like a buffed up Wii, and it doesn't really have its own identity, right? So many other people thought that when they first unveiled it, they thought it was just like a tablet add-on for the Wii, right? So, but I think if you do it right, it still feels so much different. Look at the Xbox 360 and Xbox. Like, the 360 feels so much different than the original Xbox, just in terms of its library, in terms of its features, in terms of its hardware. And that has its own vibe, yet it still supports not every original Xbox game, but a decent selection of them. So, and then to go on and say like, oh, I've paid for a ton of CDs and vinyls, I think that's a little hypocritical of a comment, I'm not gonna lie. It's one of those things that's like, same thing with like, you know, older movies like DVDs or Blu-rays or, yeah, like if you collect music CDs and stuff, it's like, it's the same thing, especially with physical media in that regard with video games. It's like, it's nice to have the option. It's always good to have these options. It just does it come down to being worth it for these companies to put that effort into it. And in this day and age, it seems like less and less so it's becoming worth it. But I think it's still possible that we get some more. So for example, it's not completely out of the question. Here, this is a Mary Station article, shout out to them. They made, yeah, just a list of like Xbox compatibility games. The reason why they wrote this though, just this little part here. So 3 years ago, this article was written a month and a half ago as of this recording. 3 years ago, Microsoft's, they had the backwards compatibility program on Xbox. And essentially they were just like, we're done. These are the last batch of games, right? Which was unfortunate to hear. However, Jez Corden over at Windows Central, yeah. Sarah Bond said that, yeah, leaked this message from Sarah Bond talking about forming a new team dedicated to game preservation, important to all of us at Xbox and the industry itself. We are building on a strong history of delivering backwards compatibility to our players, and we remain committed to bringing forward the amazing library. So a lot of PR speak, but to be fair, like Xbox is, even though it's software emulation, they are pushing that idea of like certain games, assuming they can get the licensing and contract fees out of the way, which seems to be why they cut some of, they weren't able to get some games backwards compatible in Series X and Series S. They are trying at least and putting in some effort. Now, a lot of people are believing this is really only going to be for Activision Blizzard games because obviously that acquisition was huge for them. For example, the old Call of Duty games I've heard they could be put on there, and other games from those studios, which would make sense. So I'm not expecting other just brand new games to show up. That'd be great, but I'm not expecting that. That would be definitely ideal to bring some of them back though, for sure. So, you know, which is nice. It's nice to have that, but definitely don't go in with the expectation that they're going to be doing that. Before I jump into this last article, I kind of wanted to just share a few examples I have of backwards compatibility. So I'm running a bunch of my consoles right now. So this first one's not a great example of backwards compatibility, but one that they tried, and I want them to try again relating to this article, is the Xbox 360. I'm going to pull it up here. Of course, we're talking about Jet Set Radio Future. Got to be on theme. Don't tell Sega or Xbox. This is the one that says not for resale. Oops. It's like a demo disc. But I played this game for the first time a couple years ago as of this recording, and the emulation on the 360 from the original Xbox is really not great with this game. This might be Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've tried a bunch of. I don't have a ton of examples of backwards compatibility with the OG Xbox of the 360, but this game it has issues running. Like even I think on XEMU, I think that it's notoriously a difficult game to emulate, which kind of stinks. But it's a classic one that I hope I would. Oh, then I'm going to do new game. I would love for them to like bring this onto the backwards compatibility list. This was the big one, I think, for a lot of people too, from what I saw. That was oh, can I, bro? Can I not go back to the menu? That's fine. All right. This is a big one for people. This is a defining staple game of the original Xbox that, like, I really wish they would have made backwards compatible. It's not horrible, to be honest. There are certain sections though where it really slows down. It becomes very noticeable, especially when there's a lot going on. It definitely slows down. Where I've heard like playing it on the original Xbox is not like that at all. So it's definitely on the emulation. But this is, I mean, listen, you guys probably know if you've watched this channel, I'm a big Jet Set Radio fan, so I would love to see them add this to the backwards compatibility list for Series X and X. I don't expect it to. Like I said, it's probably going to be mainly Activision Blizzard titles. This would be a cool one to have, though. This is such like a great game, and it'd be even better with proper emulation supported by official companies through backwards compatibility. So it'd be really cool. I don't know if they'll do it, probably not, but this is an example of one that could be done better, But I mean, the fact that they offered it all with several original Xbox games, like I said, not all of them. For example, Pac-Man World 2, I used to own a copy of that for the original Xbox. That was not backwards compatible on the 360. A bunch of licensed games and stuff too. Some, but not all. So there are definitely some that could be there. I think Crash Tag Team Racing doesn't work either, from what I remember. That one I do know. And I don't... No, actually, no. Wrath of Cortex is. I haven't tried it out yet on 360, but that one is backwards compatible, I believe. So definitely let me know if you have any favorite original Xbox games that are backwards compatible, either on the 360 or the Series X. Like I said, this is Series X, so this is not... Sorry, this is Xbox 360, not Series X, which I wish it was, but that's a fun one. This one is an example of one that could be better. Now, give me a sec. Now, this one here, this is one of my favorite examples of backwards compatibility. This is the Series X, by the way. This is Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind Game of the Year edition, which this was actually my brother's copy growing up, and I love this game. I love messing around with it. I've never actually beat it, but I just like messing around and just seeing what happens. It's a little quiet. This game is like very quiet for some reason. Let me turn it up. There we go, so you can hear it a little more. This is a very fun one. Obviously very janky, very old. This was, old school Bethesda RPG, right? This was way before Skyrim, for those of you who aren't aware, but definitely.
On deck and let's keep this as civil as possible.
Well, thanks, bro. This is such a fun one because this one specifically, I'm pretty sure this is running at like 4K 60. Older games like this definitely can do that. But Series X, I'm surprised with how much but our records don't show from where. Series X honestly has like a decent offering. I'm not gonna go through this too much. I'll be a Breton. Sure, you'll fit right in. I'm gonna punch some people. Let's go. Can I punch people yet? Oh no, okay, not yet. I don't know if it'll let me go through. This is such a classic game for me. It's so nice to like go be able to have this, and be able to. No thanks. I don't have the lock level yet. It's nice to be able to play this game. I think this is a very extreme example because this is 3 generations later, right? Original Xbox all the way to Series X. It's so cool that it's there to me. I love this. I like geek out over stuff like this. But I won't expect that stuff like this will always happen. But like that's what I'm saying. Like Microsoft, I think out of everybody, not that I want to give them credit after the recent studio closures, but like they've had pretty good backwards compatibility. Just like if you own the disc, right? Is 3 generations? Is that the biggest gap that any? Right, because you can't play PS3 games on PlayStation 5, right? Let me know, Sony fans, in the comments below. And I know Nintendo for sure. So this is this is super cool. I don't know. I geek out over stuff like this. Like, they are putting in some effort. That's one thing I do appreciate them trying to do. Now, it's not perfect. There's a lot of games they haven't tried, but you know, I'm sure they have to like justify costs and stuff. So this one's a fun one. Like, this is why I love backwards compatibility right here. This game is over 20, just over 20 years old, and I can play it on my modern Xbox, and it looks better and runs better than ever. I mean, it looks old, but like as someone who's a retro gaming fan, I definitely appreciate that. That is enough with Xbox, though. Give me a second to switch over. Here's a fun example. This is not a Wii. Like I said earlier, I sold my Wii. This is the Wii U. Now, this is a fun one because the Wii U literally has a Wii mode. It really is just a beefier HD Wii, you know? So it's cool. I can connect my Wii remote. I don't need to deal with that gamepad. And I can... Oops, sorry, that's a little loud. And I can boot up No More Heroes on my Wii U and have it work. I'm pretty sure, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure, doesn't every Wii game work on Wii U? Because it's literally just a beefed up Wii. Like, I think this might be the most recent, I'm trying to think, definitely correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I feel like this might be the most recent example of hardware emulation, where the reason why, oh, right, it's connected. The reason why you can play all the Wii games on the Wii U is because it's just straight up has the Wii hardware, right? With the original Wii models, I used to have the one I had could play GameCube games as well, and I believe that was also hardware emulation. I'm trying to think if Nintendo's ever done software emulation. I mean, I guess they probably have, but definitely like the fact that I can just like literally, you know, it's having the immediate previous generation accessible is so nice to be able to do this. You know, the jump from Wii to Wii U, I could sell my Wii. That was great. I mean, I never had a GameCube for so long because I bought a Wii so that I could play GameCube games. Obviously, I knew the library was great. Bitter. Yeah, I'm not going to play through all this, but just to kind of showcase, you know, I had to showcase No More Heroes. You know, just having this option to be able to play all these different games to this degree, it's just, I don't know, I think it's so cool, you know? And it's, I don't know, it's something that I hope, damn, that got loud. It's something that I hope they really can keep up. Obviously, they're not, I don't expect anybody to do more hardware emulation at this point.
Don't have much patience. At least that's what
I don't,
Bishop, the
Travis.
dude at the video store said.
This is so funny. I won't show too much of this because I know this game gets graphic. So look up this game if you're at all interested. But it's just, it's cool to have this option. You know, even if it's not used by many people, it's nice to have the option. You can sell your previous console, you can have a bunch of games immediately accessible on the new hardware, you know, and so I feel like a lot of that might be gone once companies stop doing full hardware emulation, which they already have anyways, so it's kind of been on the way out already. But at least, you know, there are some examples of stuff we could see here. Now, I do want to kind of lead into this. This will be the end of the video here. Sorry, this is enough, I know.
Sylvia Crystal, an agent with this watch.
Yeah, I know. I can't be doing that the whole time. But just to kind of show here, back to this article, right? Let's bring it all back to the present day. Let's bring it all back. So this is the IGN article from a couple weeks ago as of this recording. Now, essentially talking about right, this one was talking about essentially all the Nintendo president's announcement of, you know, the fact that the successor to the current Switch exists. It will be announced at some point in the next fiscal year, right? There was a comment that someone made, I think it was with investors, where Furukawa mentioned the Switch 2 will continue to use the elsewhere. Furukawa said Nintendo is calling the console the successor to the Nintendo Switch, which to me, yeah, for ease of simplicity, to me, this implies that it is a Switch, which to me means what they could do is for backwards compatibility, because I mean, I am on the side that believes that the next Switch will have backwards compatibility. I do fully believe that. I don't know to what degree. They could do, and I talked to some people about this, like the $10 upgrade method that Sony does with their games from like PS4 to PS5 and so on. I hope not. I mean, it'd be great if it just worked. It really depends on if they're going to do hardware emulation within the next Switch, if it really is a Switch itself. Like, I'm inclined to believe it will be, if it's going to be like similar architecture. I mean, it's going to be a completely different chip though, so I don't know. That's going to be an interesting thing. What they could do, and granted, I'm not a tech nerd, so definitely tech nerds correct me or give me additional info in the comments below. But for example, I could totally see them doing something like the DS to the 3DS. So for example here, kind of hear it, I know it's going to clash with the music, but I've been playing Mario 64 DS on my 3DS XL, right? And that's been nice because I don't have to worry about the D-pad, right? I mean, it's still only the 4-directional movement technically, but I can use the circle pad instead to be able to move Mario around, you know? So that like genuinely makes this game even more playable. I know there are mods and stuff too to make it so that, you know, you can do that. Now, one thing that I've seen a lot of people speculate and that I honestly could see Nintendo doing if they're going to have backwards compatibility just with physical games on the Switch is similar to what they do with DS versus 3DS cartridges. So here, listen, I got to shout out Link Between Worlds. I always got to shout it out when I can. Here's the 3DS cartridge for those of you who haven't seen it. This is what it looks like. So you see, hold on, give me a second. I'm going to take the DS cartridge out of here. Reason why both DS and 3DS cartridges work is because they're almost relatively the same. So here's the 3DS cartridge of Link Between Worlds, and here is the DS cartridge, right? They're pretty much the same, except notice the one difference is this little notch. So obviously, that way you can't put a 3DS game in your DS, right? Because that won't work. That just doesn't, you know, it doesn't go that way. The backwards compatibility is the other way around. So I think, honestly, they could do something similar here. Like, it worked really well with the DS and 3DS. Now, I don't know if it was the 3DS that had the original DS chip and the new 3DS chip. And I don't, tech nerds, like I said, if you know, let me know in the comments below. So that's what I'm wondering is if they have that kind of level of backwards compatibility, that'd be awesome. You know, worst case scenario, Nintendo says, hey, we're still going to sell you $70 remakes of these older games on the new Switch. It's like, or the new successor to the Switch, I should say. You'd be like, yeah, maybe, but like, I don't know. It's, if they were to do hardware emulation like this, they could really definitely go all out for sure and have that little notch and like be able to kind of have both playable. That would be great. That would be ideal in my opinion. But overall, just to wrap up this video before it gets way too long, you know, backwards compatibility is important. It's important. It's one of those things that's like, you don't realize what you have until you don't have it. Because, like I said, newer gamers won't care. But retro gamers like myself and others, like having that option, and you can resell the games on the digital storefronts. Like, that's great to have those games on the storefronts. That is also awesome to have. But to also have, you know, physical media that you bought years ago still work on newer hardware is great. Like, I really, unfortunately, I do think it's, especially as we're going towards the all digital future, that is on its way out. You know, it really is. So I don't know what will happen, but I think the successor to the Switch has the potential to be fully backwards compatible like some of the previous Nintendo systems have been. Xbox is probably going to stop the backwards compatibility with the next system if it doesn't have a disk drive, but I don't know. I don't really know for sure. Either way, I love backwards compatibility. I love playing older games on newer hardware if it's supported, because it's just really fun to bring them up to the modern era and not have to rely on ancient hardware that could literally just give out at any moment. You know, it's nice to have that option. So with that, that is going to wrap up my thoughts on this video. Let me know in the comments below. Are you a fan of backwards compatibility, or are you one of those more, are you not really a retro gamer and you just kind of really don't care and it's there, but you just never really use it? You know, let me know. Let me know in the comments below whether you think this is worth it or not. But otherwise, thank you again so much for watching. I will catch you all on the next video or live stream. And until then, take care. Game it up.